This is Help Me Be Me, and I am Sarah, and this is an episode I'm calling Moving Through Pain Toward Transformation. And this is for if you are in a stage where you are seeing a wall, maybe you're at a low point, maybe you are in a point of seeing like a dark tunnel in front of you. And this is for seeing that as a moment of opportunity and transformation. And it's kind of when I would call, start to float on top of the waves, we surrender. That's when we start to see doors opening, or we see opportunities to move through this. It's like we grow new capacities, new chambers. I think a lot of pain we deal with in our lives is really an opportunity to just teach ourselves to be in it, to hold ourselves through it, and practice allowing our nervous system to tolerate it, but in the frame of mind of I am deliberately doing this. I'm moving through this with intention. I think a lot of what we experience in our lives in terms of like panic and powerlessness and overwhelm is the result of nervous system responses to stress that are programmed by old experiences. And in those moments, we become overwhelmed, we become flooded. But if we are able to have the intention or the goal of moving through it and feeling I'm at the wheel, I'm still holding on and driving through the suffering, that's when things start to change. As we come out the other side of it, we start to feel like, yeah, all right, I got this. I am okay. And then we become more and more and more okay each time that occurs. So the goal for me, for you in this episode, is to start to float on top of that water and be on top of the waves and not resist. And especially if you are in a place of suffering right now, maybe you are trying to be happy when others in your life are not. Maybe you are feeling hopeless and you're in that stage of wanting to just give up. Maybe you're in that place of just panic and desperation. All of these things are states of mind that we can move through with a goal in mind, and then we grow new muscles. So when we can welcome, even in this state, synchronicities and grace, when we can surrender and accept powerlessness, this is when signs start to come in, doors start to open, we start to feel new awareness of opportunity. So I wanted to start this episode with a little bit of a grounding practice. Let us all let go and welcome what is. And with that, allow in a flow of love and trust. I know that might feel difficult from a stage of pain and suffering. It might feel like, but this thing. Let's just step out of that for one moment and start by taking a deep breath. And now I want you to imagine in your mind's eye, if it's safe to close your eyes, close your eyes. Imagine a limitless horizon, one that is soothing to you, whatever it is. I just want you to visualize it. Maybe it's the flat ocean in front of you. Maybe it's a mountain range, whatever it is, just visualize it. And then last, I want you to ground by either touching the surface you're sitting on, something that is strong and stable. Feel the firmness of what you're sitting on that is supporting you. Or maybe feel something of a different temperature. Maybe there's something cool, cold that is around you. And just to continue to take deep breaths. Right now, know that this is not the end of the world. Even if it feels like the end of the world, we have to try to reframe it in our minds and not take it so seriously. And when you have pain in your body, we have that mental state of resistance to it. I think sometimes it's helpful to ask instead, how can I breathe into this pain? How can I remember my global truth that I am okay? Right now, I am okay. I am safe. And how can I resume an expectation that something good will result from this? And know that this is one step along the ride. It is not forever. And I would think of this as almost like we're in a contraction. We're giving birth to something and it's a contraction of intense pain. And we will have these throughout our lives. We just have to breathe through it and know that when it comes to the way your life should look, the things we are, quote, meant to do, the things that we should be doing, the things we should have, the way the path should look, it doesn't have to be so narrow based on your whole life experience. It doesn't have to be so specific and this way. Change can happen very quickly. The path can wander vastly. Everything in your life can change in a single day. And remember to have that wide perspective and know that all transformation is possible at any moment. Just remember to have that limitless awareness, because that is all true. All right, and with that, there are 3 parts in this episode: the what, the why, and the how, the tools. Part 1, the what. A rut, a wall, a feeling of this is ruined, or a perspective that is stuck, an intense state of personal pain, of resisting knowing something that's really hurtful, or a feeling we are battling with the state of our lives. Basically when some sort of dark tide takes over. And in these moments, we are flailing, we're resisting, we're just in suffering. And I think in this time, the goal is to hold ourselves like a friend would and teach ourselves to manage and navigate the difficult feelings, basically hold our hand and move through it. We move through it with the goal of treading water. We are traversing pain. Part 2, the why. Why would we have physical states like this? I would say a lot of it happens with our nervous system response to something that makes us feel powerless. And that's pretty much imprinted by all past trauma, pain, whatever you want to call it. And the other half of it is just our chemicals. Our perspective in any situation is like 99.9% our hormonal chemical makeup, the chemical state that we can move through in our life. Like if you are depleted, you can see a completely different reality. Like everything feels impossible. You feel completely like a victim. Everything feels terrible. Everyone feels mean. A different hormonal state, you could feel like everything's beautiful. You love everyone. Everything is hopeful. So just remember that factor. I also know a lot of that chemical perspective is created by substances, like things like alcohol. And I mean, even alcohol from the day prior, that can create a feeling of being put upon, being angry, being on the back foot, like your fuse is dramatically shortened. I would also say when we have old pain or a feeling of we've been going at full speed for a long period of time, things that are undealt with, anger, getting the short end of the stick, unmet needs, all of those things can build up and you can end up feeling like you are drowning in a stew of emotions. And at that point, oftentimes we don't know how we feel, we just feel chaos. We feel, I don't know what's happening inside. It's like there's this lack of being able to sort the feelings. So I think a lot of feelings, whether they're hormonal, whether they're echoes of old feelings we've experienced in the past, or oftentimes they are echoes of old generations. Like these are kind of imprints that were, I think at some level, intended to keep us safe as creatures, but often they are very confusing. Like you could have these weird milestones occur at different ages, and that is sometimes generational, has nothing to do with you. It's something that you've either on a genetic level or on an actual childhood level watched whoever raised you enact and experience. So if that is arising in your nervous system, a lot of the time it comes out of nowhere. And either way, I have a couple of books in the show notes on these different types of factors. But net, whatever is happening, we have a choice to not feed into it. and not add to that story. There's this very specific moment where our brain starts to say, and now I'm feeling blank. As soon as your brain says that, as soon as it tells you what you're going to feel, we jump on board with that role. Like, I just got cast in the play and I'm the sad one. And then everything after that is perpetuated in that storyline. So I want you to notice when your brain says that. And now I'm mad at this person. And now I'm bummed out because this person did blank. That script is a moment you can actually jump back in time and go into a different script. Just in that moment, I want you to see that script as optional. You don't have to jump into the role. That's an opportunity to say, but maybe that's not true. Maybe I choose to skip this. And in general, I know that sometimes we are powerless in the face of suffering. In those moments, if you are just a victim of your brain, it's a time for you to be very gentle and go easy. And I want you to just remember there is always a light switch. There's always a light switch that when flipped shows you a completely different reality. You can have two opposite experiences of your life in a single day. And that exists, that potential exists at all times. And so if you are in that tunnel of despair that comes with a panic attack or comes with chemical depletion or comes with some sort of flooding that is ancient, know that it is an illusion, and our job is to traverse the chemicals and move to a different channel somehow. That is the eventual goal. Never forget the goal. There's that tip of the mountain that's far in the distance. Keep walking toward that point, which brings me to part 3, the how, the tools. But first, a brief word from our sponsors. Before I go into the tools, I just want to caveat I am not minimizing your pain or the situation, so please do not take any of this that way. I'm only attempting to pull you out of a role that is possibly something we've identified with that is not helpful to us and doesn't have to be true for us. And I don't want us to get stuck in a state that is totally optional, because that happens often. And we just think like, I've got to honor this pain. I've got to honor this pain. I would say the only situation where that is true, in my opinion, is when we are processing grief. And if you're processing grief, I think even at that point, we've got to move through that in safe increments. And if we need to take breaks from it, we have to deliberately say, now I'm sealing this up and I got to go for a walk. Anyway, I digress. Tools. First tool, history triangulation. I feel like if I'm in my most wallowy victim mindset, this type of tool might make me like, well, I don't know if I agree with that because all pain is relative. So if that brings up that voice for you, totally fine, I get it. But this is a tool for states of panic and codependency. If you're in that feeling of it's too much, I cannot cope, I just can't deal, I can't deal, this is way too much, my life is way too difficult. One thing that I find to be profound and perspective altering is we get really close to world history and we get really in the body of somebody from very long ago. I recently had the privilege of visiting. I was in Mexico City, and one of the displays I really liked was the Stone of the Sun, which is it's often called the Aztec calendar, but it's actually a large gladiatorial sacrificial altar. And that was used to stage fights. And this is from 14, 1500s. And that was like a normal practice during that time, gladiatorial fights. And you'd die, one person would die. And I think that is just, I was just staring that in person, it's just this massive thing. And you're like, oh, that would be a thing you might have to do in your life. I'm like, maybe all of the stress I have of dealing with paperwork is not so important. Maybe that's not to say I don't have to do it, but like maybe I shouldn't be so bitter about it. Like all of those things, I think when we deliberately orient ourselves to the temporariness, the fleetingness, the pain, the all of the very big life-ending problems of past generations, all of our pain gets in a different lens. Another great part of this tool, I invite you to read Pillars of the Earth, which is a little pulpy. It's a little like soapy, but it's so interesting to read about just the generations of lower classes that would build cathedrals in England. And in this time, in this window of time, if you had like too many kids to afford, it was common to abandon them in the woods, just because that was the only way you're going to survive. It's like, oh, we're going to be dragged down. I got to leave this baby in the woods. Awful, terrible things. But like, I'm not saying like that's cool. I'm just saying when the details of your life are getting to you, we really have to step out of them and look at them as, how fucking big is this thing? Is it? Am I leaving a baby in the woods right now? No, I'm not. I'm really pissed about this bill from my auto mechanic. I don't know, whatever it is. Just if this is helpful, I invite you to try it. And this is just an opportunity to remember, like, I am okay. My body is safe right now. The people I love are safe right now. And we have, in these moments when we're battling with what is, we're feeling resentful over what is, we just have to step back and detach. And I invite you to do something pleasing, calming, and grounding, because I guarantee at the end of your life, you're not going to remember this stuff. It's not going to matter. And I think one extra helpful element of this is to do a little bit of what I'll call sane talk in your journal, and just basically have a conversation with yourself. So prompts. Prompt number 1, what does this thing mean, really? Second prompt, are you going to be okay? Will you survive this? Are there things you can do to allow yourself to survive in this situation? And I think a lot of the time, these types of prompts, these types of conversations allow us to just separate the factors into what I'll call piles. It's like if you have a giant pile of wood, that bonfire burns bright. If you could separate all of the issues into little piles, they're actually digestible. They're actually approachable. And then last prompt, what do I need to do to be okay for each individual problem? What are the steps I need to take? Last prompt, what is the underlying feeling, the sweet childlike feeling that needs my attention in this situation? And that's usually so sweet. It's usually something like, I'm sad that no one's helping me, or I'm sad that I'm all alone, or I don't want this to happen. And then when we could see that feeling, we could just feel compassion. This is really allowing ourselves to sit with ourselves and feel love for that feeling in that moment. All right, next tool, directed passing. When you are in the discomfort of whatever the thing you're going through, I want you to just remind yourself to be at the wheel, be in command of moving through that feeling. It's just a frame. It's just a little visualization of like, I am moving through this deliberately. So a mantra to help with that is, this is just part of it. This is just part of the course of my life, the long, long, long road that is my life. This is just part of it. This is okay. I will move through this. I can tolerate this. I am tolerating this. Whatever version of that feels right for you. We can grow accustomed to doing all things by deliberate effort. And I think a great way to do it is just picture yourself holding yourself through this breathing process, through this like contraction. I am passing this pain. All right, next tool, a little bit different type of tool, intensely satisfying. One way to grow a sense of safety with yourself and a sense of agency during this time is to give yourself exactly what you need when you need it. And this is like how we grow a really good friendship with somebody or in a really tight romantic relationship with somebody, we are very attentive to our needs. We are very attentive to that person's needs. So things like, my eyes feel dry. Get up and get yourself eye drops. When we respond to ourselves in those little tiny needs immediately at all times, we start to feel very cared for and very supported. It goes a long way. It's just like you're building a relationship with somebody else. But in times like this, it's especially helpful. So I'm cold. I feel cold and tired. Draw yourself a bath. Get in the bath. Things that feel frivolous, things that you might only do for somebody else. I want you to do those things for yourself right now. The next tool is called the reach. So I want you to think of yourself as you're climbing up a mountain and you're almost at the top and you have to really, really, really reach sideways to get to the top. We're reaching and it's very uncomfortable. When we're in that death tunnel of panic attacks or when we're in that state of overwhelm, it is about traversing time and we have to focus on a single point of where we want to go. And also, we have to reach out. We have to ask for help and we have to involve other people in where we are. That is one of the hardest things to do. It is intensely challenging, and yet it is probably the key to overcoming anything, literally. Our ability to reach out and expose this thing to light. And so I want you to think of this last little leg of reaching to the top as I'm going to reach out to somebody else and I'm going to ask them for help. I'm going to ask them to put themselves out for me. So uncomfortable. It could be so painful to do that, so scary to do that. And we could resist it for our lives. And, so many people do resist that action for so much of their lives because it's like we don't want to be seen. It makes us cry to be seen. It's so just the shame is debilitating at times. If you have the ability to reach out, that is a sign that this thing will never win and that this pain will be extinguished, that this problem will be overcome. Reach out more than you think is necessary at any given time. All right, next tool. What works for your particular nervous system? I should have come up with a better name than that. Well, I'll think about it. Some things that we want in our lives may not be aligned with what our nervous system is capable of right now. And I just want you to recognize that and look at your future as an opportunity to train. Pardon. Train your nervous system. And I know that sounds weird, but like, yes, we can have intense wiring and super imprinted responses from childhood, some of which might completely make you go unconscious, literally, or some of them might make you disassociate from your body. Some might make you be repulsed by things, like physically react to them. All of that said, when we look at that stuff, look at those responses and can actually become aware of them in the moments they're occurring and ground ourselves, teach ourselves tools to manage them, we can see those as opportunities to train ourselves to move through them. So if you are experiencing pain in the area of loneliness, or let's say you have a trigger that is the pain of another person, or your pain is the overwhelm of everything you see in the future in the dark tunnel, let's just become aware of that when it occurs. And just like you become aware of an allergy to a particular food, and I want you to separate objectively from the physical response of overwhelm and see it almost like an object of sorts. And what we can do then is consciously hold ourselves as we move through it. Consciously recognize the response is happening and then do grounding practices, breathing practices, move through it by soothing, intensely soothing ourselves and traversing it, seeing that we are actually traversing it, that it's temporary, that it's not everything in the world, that it will end. And when we can put that frame around that experience and really consciously jump through it, we get good at it. We get good at seeing the beginning, middle, and end. And we can see it when it starts. We can say, oh, okay, I know what I need to do. I need to jump to the end. It might take this long. It might take a day. It might take a week, but I'm going to move through this and I'm going to get to the end. And if this tool doesn't work, I'm going to use the next tool and then the next tool and then the next tool. That is how those nervous system responses get shorter and shorter and less extreme until they sometimes completely vanish. As is true of a lot of my stuff. A lot of my PTSD has like become less and less to the point where when it happens now, I can see it and go, oh, wow, oof, this is coming back. I got to do this tool, this tool, this tool. All right, next tool is acting out inquiry. So I wanted to invite you to look at where you might be acting out against your own goals. And I just wanted to resurface this concept of acting out and taking control of something, a story in our lives where we were a victim. And I just want you to know how this works and be completely aware of how this works in case it's something that's happening in your life right now. I think when we have trauma or when we have something that we are a victim of, we often take control of that thing by acting it out on our own terms. And that is because we want it to stop haunting us. And that reenacting of the thing can bring about so many confusing, painful beliefs about ourselves. It's like we become the identity that is the person that does that thing. We don't have the context of why we're doing it. And therefore, it takes over so much more of our lives. It takes so much longer to move through it and process it because we start to repeat the actions of a person who does blank. And I wanted to bring that up in case that's something that is operating in your life right now. So maybe hit pause and take a moment and ask, am I trying to reclaim ownership of something bad or something that has been happening to me or something that scared me or something that hurt me? Am I trying to take ownership of that thing by reenacting it, by acting as a role? I'm just going to throw out a couple examples. Maybe it's a partner who is super negative and makes you feel like you're antagonistic, or maybe it's a degrading situation at your workplace if you're in a lower position, or is there some part of you that is trying to be the person who would own a past trauma, like acting as if you are that person? Just let yourself become aware of whatever item you are questioning within. Next, I want to ask you, is that true of you? And by that, I mean, does this thing, whatever it is, this action that you are taking now, make you feel good? Or does it make you feel scared and out of control? Or does it make you feel alienated from yourself and degraded? Like a lot of common ones are acting out sexually or acting like we want sexual attention, or acting like we are ragey and bold and like antagonistic. A lot of those traits come from somebody treating us like we were bad. And then we take it on as, I don't like feeling powerless. I don't like feeling like a victim. I'm just going to become that thing. And this tool is not about calling yourself bad or calling some part of yourself bad. It's just about being able to discern the difference between that which rewards you and that you wish to shed. All right, next tool. Let's mom ourselves, meaning parent whatever bad focus you might have in your life. I think it's super easy, especially in times of suffering, to get into this victim narrative in our minds. And so that victim narrative might be, God, I have to do so much. I have to do blank. I have to do blank. I have to do blank. I think it's sometimes helpful to rejigger that perspective based on what we could lose or what we have the privilege of having, and just flip it. Like if we feel put upon or overwhelmed, I think that we just have to change perspective. We have to have the opportunity to change perspective and step away, step back, and ask, is it that bad objectively? A lot of that pain is often feeling unconscious and not having the opportunity to become conscious and to come into our bodies. It's like not having the resources to come back into our bodies. So if you are finding that you are like, God, I have to fucking do blank and I have that to do and that thing is, I have all this crap that, let's just step back from that and ask, is this a privilege? Are we actually so grateful and lucky to have this thing? For example, medical care. I have a test I have to redo, and I'm like, I am super lucky. I have access to care that would say, oh, you have to take a better test. I'm like, thank fucking God, I have that. There are two ways to read that situation, though. And the same goes for all of the trivial stuff in our lives. You get to have blank. I get to have this routine every day where I care for two baby children. It's like such a gift that I get to have that. All right, next tool, sweet pea trellises. This is a boundary refresher. I wanted to remind you of the love and respect and support that is inherent in setting boundaries. I think a lot of the time we feel boundaries are mean, or we're like, but I'm hurting somebody, but they're not going to understand it. And like, that's going to offend them. Or boundaries are really powerful in how they help us love one another. They're helpful for all people to maintain positive relationships. They give us the structure to grow high and safe and thrive. And I just wanted to give one example of how boundaries work in recent example in my life. There was a teacher for a class one of my children was in, and the teacher did not have any rules for that class. And so my child kept getting very upset in the class and wanted me to come in the class. And I would come in the class and hold her hand. And then the other kids would get upset and they would want their moms to come in, hold their hand. And what that did was make the teacher more and more upset and more powerless, but didn't want to show that. And eventually the teacher blew up and yelled at all of the parents. And in that moment, I realized, oh, if there were rules for the class, if you had boundaries around this class, everyone would know exactly what to do. And no parents would come in. I wouldn't come in. The kids would, if there were rules that the kids had to leave, if that was the situation, all of this, everyone would know exactly how to take care of themselves and take care of other people. And that is exactly how it operates in our lives. They're not good or bad, they just are. They are true guidelines for what keeps us safe. And we all have versions of those rules for ourselves. Certain things make us feel good. Certain things make us feel violated and victimized. And our job is to know what those are and to enforce them for ourselves, but also to inform others where they are so that those people can respect us. And if they're not capable of doing that, we have to detach with love. We have to say, I love you, but blank. Or we do that with our behavior. We just set the boundary, it's invisible, and we enforce it with our behavior. All right, next tool is for relationships. It's called sibling energy. If you are finding you are getting stuck in let's say it's a codependent relationship of some sort, and you're getting stuck in those loops of unmet needs. No, see me. No, I have it harder. No, why don't you see my pain? Why don't you love me enough? Why can't you see my pain? Why aren't you saying I'm nice? I'm trying to be nice. Why aren't you saying I'm nice? I tried to do blank. If you get in that ricocheting back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, that I would say is like almost a sibling, like past life sibling energy. Like I would call it almost a karmic result of people being unevolved in the same way. And that is why the wound continues to land. Like a person says this thing back and then it lands on you and you say another thing back and then, but no, you are, but no, you are. If you are recognizing a situation like that in your life, I want you to recognize that when one person grows bigger, one person deliberately evolves to become more mature, more complete, more whole unto themselves, to not fulfill that ricochet of sibling energy, the chain cannot continue. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying that is the goal. One person cannot fight alone. We need to have one person grow bigger and just be complete. When that person's complete, nothing lands. So I invite you to try that for yourself. How can I feel complete? What happens is you just start to see the other person as in pain and suffering that belongs to them. We see them as somewhat of a child, and we can love them from there. We can feel compassion and sometimes sympathy for their pain, and it doesn't have to involve us. Next tool is called the goal or the frame. And this is what I want to invite everyone to have, everyone to reframe in their lives right now. The goal is to come into a physical state of peace and acceptance. If you're in this panic stage, you're in a muscling stage, you're in a resistance stage, give loving kindness to yourself. Never forget you are perfect and it's not that bad. You didn't do anything wrong. You just are a human living very extreme pressure and imprinting from your life that will allow you to grow and thrive. Nothing is wasted, nothing is ruined. You are just growing through the rock. You are what is it, Viognier? I can't pronounce it. It's a French wine that grows in very rocky soil and it's delicious. And you are bursting through the soil and the universe wants you to be joyful. That is your ultimate perfect state. And the goal is to just come through this and be in the energy of love, joy, trust. Love, joy, trust. It's not about thinking your way there. It's not about solving your way there. It is about growing that organic, conscious state, that energy in your body. It's just about resuming the energy in your body, absent of all facts, absent of all thoughts. How can I get to that physical state in my body? What do I need to do? Do I need to meditate? Do I need to do yoga? Do I need to hike and separate from all of this thinking? We just want to loosely know where we want to go, which is love, trust, joy. Just trust, joy. I think a really helpful exercise for myself anyway is how do I remember what it feels like in my physical body to be trusting? Because I think we get into so much of this fear, anxiety state of like worry and control. How am I going to do this? How am I going to solve this? How is this going to end? It's not our job. It's not our job. How can I physically pretend I am trusting and I have faith? And that's what I want to do right now. Let's all physically tune our body to be in a trust state. Hand over heart. Deep breath. How can I resume love and trust and faith in my body? How can I imagine everything is going to be okay? And how can I imagine everything is going to be more than okay? Really tune this in your body. Relax your belly, relax your shoulders, open your throat. Welcome peace and good things. Welcome peace and good things. And before I close this episode, I wanted to thank my latest sponsors. One of my sponsors is Bethany. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate anyone who makes donations. And anybody who has the means to make a donation, you can head to yaywithme.com and click donate. And I also want to thank Madeline Thank you so very much for supporting me on Patreon. Donations go a long way. If you don't have the means, I totally understand. If you could share this with someone who would be helped by it, that helps me as well. So in closing, all things shall pass, and you can enjoy the ride or not. And I would say there is so much to be gained in these just incremental shifts in our perspective, just practicing shifting our perspective. And often these feelings, these really overwhelming feelings, come down to a decision to pivot, an awareness that we possibly can pivot. And know that if you are a sensitive person in general, your life is going to be more visceral. Your pain is going to feel bigger. And that is just because you have the ability to feel more. And I think if we invest in ourselves and we say we want something great and we want to go for it, we are going to have pain by default as a result of that. And that is because we are fully investing in our experience. We are fully in our body. And therefore, we are experiencing the pain of vulnerability. It's almost like everything could be soul crushing if you are a sensitive person. Know that that is just a part of who you are. It's the other side of the coin of getting to experience the vast pleasure of fulfilling your greatest potential and your greatest singing with your full voice. And we just have to be very careful and gentle with ourselves and move through that with a full awareness that our nerves feel a lot. But regardless of where you are, what we have to do is always know anxiety and desperation are not true. And our job is just to pass through that, soothe ourselves, relax our human nervous systems, and reconnect to consciousness, to the conscious just state of, I am a beam of light. My body is filled with a beam of light. I am consciousness. How can I just come back into a pure connection with my consciousness and a sense that the universe is peaceful and loving and relaxed? Expect good things. I send you my love. Don't forget that all transformation is possible and can happen rapidly. Always have hope. Hope is rational. And don't forget to smile.